Hello, thank you for joining me. So in this video I'd like to show you an appropriate application for using lofts. Lofts are really good in regard to taking different profiles and trying to blend a 3D feature from those profiles. If you have a profile that varies only maybe in a certain amount of length or width, or maybe it just changes arc lengths or other things by very small amounts, the Lofted Boss base gives you a really good control feature associated with it in order to get those profiles to blend from one profile to another in order to create one 3D feature that closely resembles what you're trying to get. So what I did is I put together a kind of a crude model of an airplane wing, at least what I perceive to be a shape of an airplane wing. And of course there are online resources you might want to consult with before you venture into this. There are a lot of designs out there that I didn't really follow, but I did put together this model in order to simulate this and show you how something like this goes together. And as I said in the beginning, an appropriate application of a Lofted Boss base. So initially what it is, I drew a basic outline of an airplane wing. Initially, before I did that, as I drew on the right plane here on the top plane, but coincident with the right plane, I put in a center line, a construction line, and yeah, and I made subsequent construction lines about 24 inches apart from that. The reason I did that is I'm thinking about putting, or I'm going to consider and have considered and actually used that 24-inch distance in order to put in my individual profiles for that spar that's going to exist there. So every 24 inches I have one of these center lines, and I did that through a linear sketch pattern. So on each one of these center lines is going to exist a new plane. So this is going right on the right plane, so I'm going to draw my first profile, or have drawn my first profile on the right plane. And this is going to be right plane 2, right plane 3, right plane 4, right plane 5, and right plane 6. I'm going to be drawing a profile on each one of these planes, which are going to be coincident with each one of these center lines that were initially drawn out on the top plane. So in a way, with not only with the outline of the airplane wing that you see in this top sketch, I'm also drawing out where some of the reference geometry for each one of these spar locations are going to be in regard to the profiles I'm going to be using the loft, if that makes sense. So this is an important sketch. It's a good starting sketch in order to get that geometry in place, and then after that we're going to go ahead and create our planes, and from those planes we're going to draw our profiles in order to get our loft put together. So you notice that there's some various geometry in here. We have splines which are underdefined. These splines, and the nice thing about this is we can take these splines and continue to manage them and manipulate them by moving them around a little bit. And that's part of another video, but there are some manipulation and modification techniques that you can use with splines in regard to each one of these points. Each one of these points comes with some control features that allow you to manipulate that point's influence and its position there too. Also included with this is a regular sketch line, which has got a midpoint relationship with the origin. Another sketch line out here which kind of caps the end of our splines. And then we have various dimensions and other reference geometry in regard to how the spline ends itself right here at the right plane. So let's go ahead and rebuild that. Let's go to some other features. What I did is I took the profile of the wing in the front and the back, and I created some guide curves. If I were to hide an initial wing shape, I do have a guide curve for the front of the plane, front of the wing, and I also have a guide curve for the rear of the wing simply by using the convert entities, sketch entities. And then I did my profile 1. Profile 1 is right on the right plane, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. Go normal 2. I'm not going to go into the details of this, but we do have an arc on the top, an arc on the bottom, an arc in the front, with various dimensions associated with that. Make sure that you do consult online resources if you are going to be making an airplane wing like this, because this is not correct. It's just here for demonstration. Each one of the profiles beyond that simulates, or is very similar to the very first profile. So the next thing I did is I did a right plane 2, parallel to the front plane, and coincident with that center line that we had on our top sketch, our wing shape sketch, and then a very similar profile to the first one, and so on and so forth through our profile 3, our right plane 4 and profile 4, and right plane 5, profile 5, and so on and so forth. I didn't complete this, but I have enough on here to get a decent model created by using a Lofted Boss base. So let's go ahead and do that. Lofted Boss base. First thing it's asking for is a profile. You can click in these lines if you like and do that. It's going to arbitrarily choose a point for these pull points in order to put that loft together. These pull points allow you to, and we can definitely define where these pull points are going to be by simply clicking on some sketch geometry in our profile in order to manage where those pull points are going to be. But those pull points allow us to modify how that loft's going to come together. Right now the loft's just going to be a straight front to back sort of loft, but we can. It's not going to allow us to do it here because it's going to create some geometry that's not going to work out. You can see the preview disappears. But we can actually take that loft and actually do a twist of that loft by manipulating these points. So to continue on with the profiles, we're going to go ahead and click on those, and we're going to end it right there and go to the green check mark. And I'm going to take my wing shape, and I'm going to hide that for a moment and show you what happens in regard to the profile and how it was profiled out in regard to the loft and how it was using profiles in order to get that shape. But you notice that the guide curves, the profile or the loft doesn't really conform to the guide curves. Here the loft is kind of inside that guide curve, and over here it's on the outside of that guide curve, and it's a little bit less pronounced in the front. So let's go back to our loft and actually make some modifications to it. We can add guide curves to that. So we can manage the back of the wing by clicking on the guide curve in the rear. And because it's got an extraordinary sort of bend over here, curvature here, it does influence some of the features in the middle. So it kind of creates these little bumps, kind of a wave pattern in front. And it's the reason why we would have two guide curves. We would have a guide curve in the front and the back. So we're going to click in this guy, and that's going to conform it a little bit better. In fact, it conforms it very well to not only the profiles that we drew out, but to the wing shape that we had initially in our initial sketch. And go to green check mark, and there's our wing. Curved on top, taking into consideration the arcs on the top, takes into consideration the arcs on the bottom and the front of that, and it actually does a pretty decent job. So thank you for joining me. That's all for this film, and we will see you in class.